Democracy since 301 AD takes a backseat to no one when it comes to human rights, and is just as much a part of the new European architecture being talked about here as anyone else. So this morning, when San Marino's Prime Minister took his turn presiding at the summit, 33 heads of state paid attention.
Ad avviso della Repubblica di San Marino,
and this afternoon, when Gotti gave his speech, the powerful leaders of the old world order stopped to listen to a tiny country's hope for the new one.
That Europe will never again be against man. The process of democratization is an irreversible one.
Grazie.
More firefighting reinforcements are on their way from Sydney and Victoria to the Riverina to fight the huge blaze that's racing out of control. The fire started near Hay and, fanned by strong winds, has already swept through more than 70,000 hectares. The main front is now 30 kilometres west of Darlington Point. More than 300 local volunteers have been unable to halt its progress. The Sturt Highway has been cut 40 kilometres east of Hay. Some properties are in danger and a number of people have been evacuated. Communications have been cut, hampering firefighting operations. New South Wales police are investigating claims of insurance fraud in the wake of last year's earthquake in Newcastle. There have been allegations of complicity between builders, assessors and homeowners to artificially boost the cost of repairs. Housing Minister Joe Shipp also told State Parliament that some repair work was inadequate. He revealed that insurance claims were still coming in at the rate of $300 a week and that the final bill is expected to top the $1 billion mark. Former police bagman Jack Herbert told a Brisbane jury today that former Assistant Commissioner Graham Parker lied to the Fitzgerald inquiry. Parker has pleaded not guilty to perjury.
The self-confessed police bagman arrived under tight security after being under police protection for nearly 3 years with an indemnity from prosecution. He was lying on the back seat with his hands covering his face. Herbert said he and Graham Parker were involved in a protection racket for illegal bookmakers known as the Joke. When I first went to the licensing branch, it was used quite freely among the men. If an honest policeman came along, we'd just say, "Heads up, one of the enemy." During the early 1960s, about 25 licensing branch officers collected bribes. Herbert said officers involved in the Joke would check for warrants issued against SB bookmakers. If a protected bookmaker was going to be raided, he would be warned in advance. Parker's lawyer accused Herbert of lying about Parker to save himself from jail. If you now withdraw your accusations against Mr. Parker, you lose your indemnity. You're looking at a charge of perjury yourself.
To finance now, and Elders IXL will become Britain's second largest brewer after receiving approval for the purchase of Courage Breweries and the merger of both companies' hotels. The announcement saw 3.5 million Elders shares change hands on Australian share markets. They gained 3 cents. News Corporation soared 40 cents while the National Australia Bank added 8. The market indicator was up more than 8 points and the Australian dollar firmed. In Britain, the pressure's on Michael Heseltine to drop his challenge to Margaret Thatcher's leadership for the sake of Tory unity. He failed to topple her, but the Prime Minister's 52-vote winning margin wasn't enough to avoid a second party room ballot next week.
After one of the most torrid weeks of politics in British history, 372 Conservative MPs gathered in Westminster to decide their leader's fate. Britain and much of Europe gathered around television sets, awaiting the result of the secret ballot. What emerged was more damaging indecision. Margaret Thatcher heard the news by telephone at the British Embassy in Paris.
Naturally, I'm very pleased that I got more than half the parliamentary party and disappointed that it's not quite enough to win on the first ballot. So I confirm it is my intention to let my name go forward for the second ballot.
I
must go and do some telephone.
Do you feel at all betrayed by some of your friends?
Thank you very much.
The challenger also vowed to fight on.
The results that we have are within 1 or 2 of the firm pledges that we had received by this morning. I will therefore allow my name to go forward into the second round.
The American space shuttle Atlantis is back on Earth after putting a spy satellite into orbit. Atlantis came down a day later than scheduled at Cape Canaveral in Florida because bad weather had prevented it from landing in California. The satellite's reported to be able to monitor military movement in the Gulf. While Atlantis came down, the latest Ariane rocket went up from Guyana in South America. It too is putting communications satellites into orbit. In London, 20 volunteers have been injected with what could be the forerunner to a vaccine against AIDS. A genetically engineered substance is mixed with one of the proteins found in HIV. Scientists hope that those injected with it will produce antibodies. And the International Conference on Antarctica has opened in Chile. Australia and France are pushing for a total ban on exploitation of the frozen continent, but others want the door left open for possible future mining. A dig with a difference in California, where excavators are unearthing the 10 Commandments. Not the tablet Moses chiseled, but a part of Hollywood legend.
It could be a plot for an Indiana Jones film, but instead of digging for lost jewels or temples, these archaeologists are looking for a lost movie set buried in sand dunes 150 miles north of Los Angeles. The set was used in Cecil B. DeMille's classic silent film, The 10 Commandments. The set, which depicts the city of the Pharaoh, stood 110 feet high and was 750 feet wide. More than 1,000 workers labored a month to construct the set. 500,000 feet of lumber, 250 tons of plaster, 25,000 pounds of nails, and 75 miles of reinforcing wire went into its building. The preliminary dig was financed through seed money from Bank of America. Even though termites and the elements have taken their toll, archaeologists are optimistic some of the set can be excavated and put on public view. Legend has it that DeMille buried the set because it would have been too expensive to dismantle and return to Hollywood.
The Mafia Code of Omerta lives on. A group of top Italian crime busters held talks in Canberra today with their Australian colleagues, but when they emerged from their conference to be grilled by reporters, the Italian cops and judges refused to talk, except to acknowledge that the mafia exists. Not to be outdone in the tight-lipped stakes, federal police wouldn't reveal how long the Italians will be here, nor where they'll go next. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's national weather for you. Unsettled for Sydney, the chance of a shower in Canberra, but it should be mainly fine in the other capital cities. And that's all from Late Edition News for tonight. We'll leave you with a look at one of the world's most valuable cars, a 1907 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost that's in New York to raise money for charity. It's estimated to be worth $20 million. $20 million. Not bad for a car that's already travelled almost 1 million kilometres. Until tomorrow night, from me, Clive Hale, good evening.
I love to wonder where the daisies are, and it's no wonder